There is no taming the beast or the shrew. So consider this as part of the epitaph we're leaving behind in a construct that believes somehow that it deserves to take and rarely ever give anything good or useful in return. And it can keep its long and boorish law of war manual to itself. Welcome to Egg-Gnosis Part 10, HuHub Gaming Environments, Communications, Cybersecurity, and Outpost. On this day, Saturday, June 3rd, 2023, this presentation is written and narrated by Melissa R. Cody Prater of Capetronics Dimensional Art, which is based on the Over Unity formula by Brian D. Prater. Ahoy, mateys! There is a lot of intense information to cover in this Egg-Gnosis update, starting with a deeper look into HuHub Gaming Environments, wherein some of the riddles that we have been discussing in this series are given further explanation and clues as to how it relates to our current situation. Then, the psychological and metaphysical aspects of communications are provided for those interested in the hows, which will lead into some up until now undivulged details about the cybersecurity and compression software HuHub will use. Also, for those who may not have watched the first lengthy introduction videos about HuHub, which were made years ago, I will describe the future HuHub centers and Job Hut, what their purposes are, and how they will function near you. Then we'll wrap up with some very interesting Underworld battle reports to include how the enemy may have been trying to invade another future company of ours called DanceStop, and to disclose some investigative evidence photos of the Minotaur's secrets, which he or she may not want in the public, but you'll get to see it here first, folks. Is it conceivable that we have not yet been created? My prayer is that this presentation acts as a love bomb of God's words, with this ever which way turning sword of the Spirit and the light of truth. I used to hear, you can do whatever you put your mind to. And there is a supposition that people have about smart people, that they can do anything, and so on. But my husband and I are examples of how untrue those ideas are. Some people live for the moment, and some people see the bigger picture. The latter I call stakeholders, as in stakeholders in this nail, in this corner of this foundation. In business, stakeholders are people who are directly in contact with the company and product, which makes them also more likely to buy the product or service themselves. Because they have knowledge of the product or service in existence, then obviously that knowledge then increases the likelihood of them becoming a customer or even a representative in some way of that company. So companies should cater to that potential exchange of further involvement. which makes stakeholders very important persons, VIPs. For those of you like myself who live on the verge of a panic attack, before we get into this section too deeply, I would like to go over a breathing exercise with you, in case you feel tingly or a lack of air soon. In this hell, sometimes it feels like the demons are trying to rip the breath right out of my lungs. So I learned not to give them any at all. I just breathe in again, and in again, and over, as many times as I can before I must exhale. So every time you feel the need to exhale, simply inhale and let that breath settle into the deepest parts of your body as it spreads. You will feel the breath into your cells as you inhale and let it spread. Instead of giving those demons your carbon dioxide, you simply breathe in some more nitrogen and oxygen. This is the breath of WHO exercise. Work yourself up to 23 or more if you can, but eventually please take a breather and exhale and inhale regularly. Every breath we must starve those demons out. The quicker we starve them out, the quicker they relent. I am telling you these secrets because I just can't keep up this charade any longer. And to those demons who want to steal our breath, you can go bark at the moon or the mirror about insubordination or criminal activity. Go suck sand. To be clear, it is not that I hate my own existence because my rulers have shown me that there is another way. Rather, I am trapped in this matrix skin, which refuses to let me progress, while at the same time seems to be transfixed on my every move and thought. So I see that there is a conscious barrier that is not necessarily movable on my own. Therefore, to bring in topics from Egg-Gnosis Part 5 Agile Business Communications, as well as similar discussions from the last episode in Part 9. This is why we at Cavetronics are bringing these ideas forward to build a network, a brotherhood, a sisterhood, a family, a company even, of the best individuals who have the who's who of who at HuHub in mind. Those are stakeholders to help further define the term herein for legal purposes. When you know, you know. Once you've been asleep for so long and wake up, you really can't go back to sleep. You can try to avoid dealing with being awake, but it becomes like a nagging demon on your back. Such is the danger of the knowledge of good and evil, and once gained, the mentor's task is to help other humans who find themselves in this predicament. It helps the guardian angels stay employed. While in this dangerous place, I'll tell you some dangerous information, which I gained from a vision in October 2005. One evening, I was looking at Plate 27 in the Egyptian Book of the Dead, Going Forth by Day, by Dr. Raymond Faulkner. And as I gazed at the pictures, my senses began to overlap, to the point where smell, taste, texture, even emotions became intertwined and revealed things to me in the written hieroglyphs. It was as if I could read the hieroglyphs, and they told a tale, an ancient Egyptian account of creation. So as I was reading or proceeding to read these hieroglyphics, mostly through smell and triggered to my memory, maybe a DNA memory, I saw the hieroglyphs and how they were formed, that they made pictures that my mind was able to extract meaning from. And from what I understood, it was like this earth, after it was created, the only living spirit on the earth was the serpent itself. So the serpent was the only thing possible that could be used for creation in order to create a living thing. So the animals each procreated with the serpent spirit, and then they would each die. With each death, they would take on a new form of man, like a portion of man, whether it be legs or feet or whatever. Then the man would die and go back into another animal form. And each time the man would cycle from animal back into a man, he would gain another portion of his body. Therefore, each part of the body is half man, but first animal. The last step in the creation of the man's body is the head, and once the man has his head, he can ascend. He becomes like a god, so to speak. Immediately following that vision, there was a new round of visions I had, which pertained to angels, or even aliens, you might call them. I saw what I perceived as spaceships, and I perceived that their purpose has been this all along, that they help man evolve in this way through leftover bits of consciousness. And they've been doing this for man's survival. And I perceived that this was an act of compassion, and that they took a great sense of joy in their work. Could I be doing something more important? That is a good question. The answer is not really. We are fighting for our survival, in case I have not made that clear already. We at Cavetronics do not fear the destiny of our soul, which is firmly established with God, but rather we compete against poverty and the suffering it brings on our physical bodies that do not die easily. Yet, just 2 years ago in January 2021, my husband died twice and was brought back with adrenaline shots to the heart in a hospital's emergency room. So unless you guys got somewhere else to go, then I would suggest that we get serious about implementing solutions and fast. And yes, I am an alarmist. Just like I was with the AI takeover, I am setting off the alarms because I see the overabundance of synchronicities as things are lining up for the great event horizon. I see the horizon on the horizon, and I am personally looking forward to it. People have wondered for ages how aliens, angels, and the other sons of God get around. People want disclosure. So let me ask you, what type of transportation do you currently have? We at Cavetronics R&D Energy travel light, faster than light. But perhaps you have on your end an anti-gravity craft with faster than light engines operated by an over-unity power supply and equipped with a hyperspace drive that can propel you to the end of the universe from here. Or maybe you don't. If not, then you are going to need my husband's help. This is the sum of the current situation here in Hades as we sail the river Styx. By the way, to the joker who bought the unique domain name HuHub.com, I see you, and I see from the Whois registry that you go by the name Joker. So to you, Joker, this situation ends like the servants of Pharaoh, buried along with the king. There are many people claiming that the Kabbalists are snakes, but in some cases I think it's more likely they have a handle on things like Moses did in Pharaoh's court, able to cast down the staff into a serpent and pick it up again renewed. So please forgive some of our marketing materials, which the language of used language that was common in society. And it was chosen for its meaningful words, the lucid, clear message, and the definitions of the words and their combined meanings. However, some of that language is polarized in a large scale and wide banded audience who may or may not already have attachments or predetermined meanings for those words that create conflict in their reception of the information. However, we do try to stay relative, which is an example of what we have here. This is part of a presentation created for a music celebrity that I thought I was communicating with from a live Facebook video chat feed, and during which time I was invited to Telegram to talk to who I thought was Tom McDonald. It had the right name on the account, and whoever it was responded vaguely to my chatter once in a while in text. But in the end, I think all I did was give away a lot of good information to a scammer. My husband and I both have Asperger's syndrome, also known as high functioning autism. We tend to have some awkwardness in our social behaviors and communications. Being more of the scientist, my husband spent his life focusing on all sciences, whereas my desire was to communicate. So beginning at an early age, I started to draw and write, and I focused on these, and I incorporated them into everything in my life, including my college degree program for information management systems. Nowadays, I consider myself a multimedia specialist, and I try to keep my communications on the up and up, which has been a daunting task lately through these videos. As many of you have already felt the effects of this female navigator, then you may wonder already what it means for this slide to have a laptop swinging from the web. Simply answered, it is a reminder that my husband's ancient laptop loaded with scientific programs and lots more is still in North Carolina, along with much of everything we owned at one time, while waiting to acquire enough money one day just to afford to go get it. This is just a reminder, folks, just a reminder of the war and the times we live in. It bites. Whether you want to talk to Lucifer or Jesus Christ, we can direct you to the best signal splitter for your choice of various electronic devices. Take the CB radio, for example. Brian Prater's Cave Spider product got the FCC Hornets on him many years ago. They came in their suits and ties and stayed all day, but left puzzled. They assumed the Cave Spider was an amplifier because from the receiver end of things, its sound byproduct seems to be louder and boosted by a lot, but it is not, I repeat, not an amplifier. Rather, it works only when needed, when the mic is engaged. It is a hardware device that is installed inside the CB radio and responsive to speech. As a habit, using his invention, Captain Caveman dead keys out the little fish and mud ducks coast to coast. So in order for us to kick up some dust and hopefully some income by this summer, he's excited and ready to hoist his new antenna on our property here in town and reclaim our territory on the CB Radio Survival Communications Network from the Ozarks with a new name, Dead Baby Radio, inspired by both the current times and music by Rob Zombie. Watch your head. I don't want anyone to bruise on this transcendental research on the Kundalini. However, I can tell you from experience that after a near-fatal bout of viral meningitis. That's the non-contagious kind. As my brain recovered in the following months to a year or more, I got gradually but speedily more intelligent, and things that had puzzled me for decades became comprehensive, and I understood many mysteries, including some surrounding the topic of time, which I pondered since the age of 6. I want to also mention here another psychological aspect of things that I think may be related, called the pseudo-Bulber effect, especially as it relates to this topic of splitters or split signals. From my own experiences, programming my own mind even at an early age, I became so furious with physical punishment and the emotions that it created in me of crying that my mind shifted, so that instead of crying in response to pain, I would laugh. And the worse the pain was, the harder I would laugh. It became a real safety problem, for when I would get seriously injured, people would ignore me and refuse to help because of my uncontrollable laughter. It became such an issue, I had to work very hard for years to reverse the effects again. As discussed in previous videos, time is a fragmented illusion. There are no parallel universes, only sets and subsets. And the enemy uses a three-pronged delta turning point quantum system. When we combine those facts together to view reality, the logical, chronological question arises as to how the enemy is ahead of time in its accurate predictions and demands. From a communication standpoint, that oddity is very helpful to calculate distance and locations and to identify clusters and their offspring. This is a very important point to ponder, and I would suggest also cross-section from what 107 said and paraphrasing. How many of you found yourselves ahead of schedule and out of proper phasing order? At this time, in this virtual gaming environment, I could suggest that it may be time for you to cease your mutiny against us at Cavetronics and surrender, and then justifiably offer us some exchange for our continued services. This is just another piece of evidence from today alone that the vamps followed us here, and yes, have and are actively stealing the ideas, even the branded names of things from us and our companies. Just to be clear, this is not a joke. This is an actual screenshot cropped from another website, source given here, concerning the gaming ideas and storyline that I have been revealing through these videos. Yet since April 2010 or before, and even as the originators of the name HuHub, we do not own any HuBucks, Hu tokens, or Hu crystals. From a legal standpoint, we could potentially sue and win at this point, having been observed by so many witnesses. Still, this message flies the banner of mercy. And although I joke a lot for your entertainment, we are not the boogeyman or your oppressors. We could be your allies for so long as this system can remain stable, but that is your choice. As crosstalk in the Tao, we speak into this conscious realm to create the alignment to become phase locked together, to force change and transform matters, to be or not to be. The process of darkness to light is a phase angle alignment, either north or south on a magnet. It is a flipping of states, flipping of polarities, inside out, intrinsic to extrinsic. The mystics would compare it to being a part of God's breath, being inhaled and exhaled. Personally, I associate this with the Wu Wei Way, which, when activated in combat, is a soft defensive countermove to displace oneself from the attack, which can then be in combination with other actions for further desired outcomes. Shifting to the humanitarian software, I know many people are rightfully concerned with cybersecurity, so I decided to elaborate more on this subject, which we have been protecting for years as proprietary information only, to be known only to serious paying investors through an attorney or business mediator negotiations process. However, I will drop a few details to give people an understanding of the security we have in mind for the future of HuHub in order to protect all users and maintain the integrity of our hardware and data. Like most everything we produce at Capetronics R&D Energy, HuHub's cybersecurity measures include over Unity, which will offer the most secure software and hardware services in the world. In 2012, HuHub concept engineer and IT specialist Brian D. Prater discussed the topic of over Unity in HuHub systems engineering, to which he said, in paraphrasing, "The future is efficiency. The program involves the engineering of the system, which comprises of the ability to have potential gain of efficiency, which in turn branches out using branching techniques, which creates more efficiency. It creates and does not deliver because it was already there, just by using configuration principles. This efficiency is supplied eternally by the way the system operates. Like water's own waves, the waves have constructive and deconstructive and mutual formalized formations." I could continue on with a large language discussion, but to get back to your answer, he said, while talking to me one day about it, I compare it to using a calculator. And after some calculations, the next input number forces the calculator to supply a subset of the numbered algorithm in a partial differential equation feedback called isolation. This is the quantum dot. This is the quantum dot that emerges such as a glitch. Refer to glitch science that we've been working on in its embryo stage due to lack of time soon to be fixed through HuHub. I've used the calculator, and you've probably used it enough to remember that I have to clear it a few times before turning it off, so it will launch correctly the next time. Then I can get back to my equations, which have now created a separational path in formulations due to this emerging phenomenon. So I now have two ways to calculate from one. Lots of tricks to the trade. Or commonly put, well-resonant tuned to continually exceed in amplitude, also known as a runaway effect, or a cascading effect, chain reaction, or phase angle transition. Whereas in HuHub, when it is in phase, HuHub will deliver the proper transition and supply correct angles. This particular OU, over Unity embedding, is the perfection ability to drive such events, commonly called phenomena. In HuHub's case, it will be called blessings. Based on information just provided above and how the process is developed within itself, by this time, we have corrected and connected an angle to help us interact in the world, where all things have increased enough to start the connections to the universe through quantum physics devices and programming using quantum computers, and then we can begin to grow into the universe. On a small level of an example, we can have data on the universe ahead of time and will be able to predict the best scenarios when Earth is overflowing with goodness and humanity, which will be a great need in the future, because the mothership that has the colony pods to deliver the Who people, they will be fruitful and multiply and subdue the Earth at some point in time, if HuHub can direct them through the many perils we have in store. When that time arises, we can finally ask ourselves, who has transcended? This should have also defined connection to the universe. The mothership has onboard Who capability, which has mapped our journey to the better place, while suspending our aging processes for our arrival time to not be exceeded. So who and what are the possibilities? Start, and the amount of time clearly defines our destinations. Hopefully we can have a huge start in the ample of time, so we can have clear definitions of our destinations. I apologize if that was a bit choppy, but it was a direct quote as quick as I could type it as he said it. It is probably a good time to mention that HuHub works most optimally to disseminate information to the people and facilitate an active communicative network. HuHub, accordingly, will deliver its own information as well as participating governmental data. As explained, such public information may be in the form of step-by-step instructions in case of crises, vital safety information, maps and directions, statistics and predictions, charts, and more. HuHub will be a sophisticated system for the public, delivering information collected from a myriad of places, sorted and offered in a manner akin to intelligence briefings, so that important news is kept at top priority in the queue, rather than vital info falling into obscurity on the web. This way people can progress through the newly available information that would otherwise be hidden from the public eyes. This helps keep people on the same page of understanding the world we live in and how we can help it faster, because we are all nodes within a system. Considering the combination of topics, I thought this background of pyramids was appropriate, but it was designed and posted by Moaz on Midjourney rather than the HuHub account, for the record. Continuing the topic of HuHub cybersecurity, I'm going to read you a paraphrased quote from Brian D. Prater from around 2012. The ideas he proposed sound like the movie Minority Report. However, it needs to be stated in advance that this is not the case. Rather, these actions defined herein are a part of a software concept and how to utilize all aspects of its parts, including all users, whether they behave nicely or not. HuHub is a conversion method and sees usefulness in things that some people may tend to disregard otherwise. So on the topic of predictive software, Prater stated in 2012, I will describe a few methods of HuHub's predictive software and its potential to spot the attempt of a hacker. Predictably, this predictivity method of HuHub far outreaches the internet because of HuHub's continuity and integration with all possible, most efficient solutions based upon real-time frame of correlation time-dependent data, which helps HuHub's exponential potential of scalability. HuHub is like a software science for humanity, and I could go on, he said, because it is a perpetual software engineering engine with detectable and predictive software engineering. This is not redundant. This is truly predictable software engineering itself, perpetually growing, evolving software. Such an example is HuHub's capabilities will in turn predict the hacker before the attack and allow HuHub to implement its secure virtual HuHub closed-off system from the true HuHub, which allows stealth anti-detection ability. So the hacker is busy with the false virtual hacking, all the while HuHub alerts the authorities to the scene to confirm the attempt. This way there is a positive confirmation of the hacker's location with the stealth maneuvers of HuHub. The hacker is unaware. Meanwhile, all the holes of security within the hacker's own system allows HuHub to gather information before the hacker is aware of anything. This stops the hacker from destroying the data on their computer, which in turn the authorities can derive more information about the hacker from. This hacker once HuHubinized, then HuHub can state the most efficient methods for the hacker to be a participant into HuHub. For example, the hack attack allows HuHub to investigate the potential of the hacker, which in turn, working through authorities with the HuHub's built-in software, monitors the hacker while the hacker participates in HuHub with their best skills. Or HuHub determines that they are inefficient and undermining, and they will be shelved until their further potential can be shown. This allows HuHub to prepare a method of understanding towards the unwilling hacker and quite possibly turning the whole situation around, while adding more variables for the predictive software of HuHub to determine more efficiency in the security of HuHub. HuHub is like a clustered, diversified, optimized, correlation-based system upon the progressive perpetualism towards the most sustainable methods of humanity. Or if the hacker is unwilling to willfully participate towards a more sustainable humanitarian system, then they always have the other option of what the authorities will determine, such as various punishments and so on. Of course, the authorities have not agreed to be more efficient with working with HuHub because HuHub's expanse vastness of seeking goodness has only just begun at this time. In time, though, HuHub's massive expansiveness will be built into the world, which will reach out to the galaxies, the universe, with the vast knowledge system built upon the goodness based in the variables delivered from the past and from the future, and from real time, of course. This will take a lot of time and a lot of people, which will in turn and can deliver a lot of goodness. I hope this answers your question. I am not allowed to give any technical details at this moment, but more possibly in the future on that. We at HuHub see where things can be improved in existing systems also. Solutions, when implemented, could potentially speed recovery time in case we're all being duped on a grand scale and discover that we must continue the previous directive to repair the world, rather than hop into another one before it's time, which means we're all going to have to work together rather than suppress some of the best thinkers and innovators still alive and kicking in this country. When HuHub becomes a software, the next phase will be to open local HuHub business nodes, which will hire full-time employees for all types of office work, such as administrative, public relations, janitorial, and duties may include tasks for office assignments might range from simple data entry up to light programming, but that is a flexible issue. Other public relations personnel will welcome individual customers on site and help them make a HuHub account if needed, and help them become acquainted with HuHub. And sales personnel will perform B2B, business to business sales, as well as HuHub accounts for small businesses, individual, sole proprietor, business owners, etc. And in the future, when HuHub is used as a decision-making network platform, if it is agreed upon, these locations may be hubs for political affairs, such as the distribution of political information pertaining to local issues, voting facts, and more. This way, these modern outposts will be community facilities as budgeting allows, of course. And while on the topic, I would like to suggest, if and where possible, that these community congregational areas include a park and safe playground equipment, whereby any such grounds are monitored by HuHub approved staff provided through the Angel system, of which more details were communicated about in the previous video. And while I'm spilling secrets right and left, I wanted to paint a better picture of what we have in mind about Project Job Hut. This idea was born before my husband's massive stroke in October 2012. We were struggling to find work that paid actual money while working odd jobs, only to be offered used couches that we didn't have any room for in the small rental trailer we lived in, or we'd work all day for a burger meal and fries, or landscaping in 110-degree heat in July for $6 to $20 a day. And looking for jobs online was such a scam for those of us that live in rural small towns in the middle of nowhere. Recruiters may call me 6 times a day and send me 40 emails, but the jobs are all for places far away. It was the same problem which birthed HuHub in the beginning, many more decades ago, in our deep thinking of how to make positive change and progress through a stack of obstacles, that we came up with the idea of Job Hut. So, in the type of rural life situation and desperate economics that we faced back then, we noticed that it was commonplace for people to pour into the big cities for employment, often living out of their cars or motels temporarily, but many of them became homeless. And we know as scientists, and it should be obvious to all, that it is more difficult to lift oneself out of a pit than it is to prevent yourself from falling in it to a degree. And once a person has fallen in, there seems to be a serious need in this world to help those persons climb out of the pits that society has set for them. I played massive multiplayer role-playing games for a while, and every single one of them were more fair than this world reality that I think most of us experience. You may be singing the YMCA by now, and that is fine by me, because I was really miffed in high school when, during the Reagan era, he sent out memos to the police across America to increasingly stifle and stop such things like people going to the YMCA, city parks and playgrounds, and so on. And that to me was and is an injustice to humanity, our community spirit, and even our souls, that will be rectified with HuHub local businesses and Job Hut locations to meet the needs of the real people, which will boost more business revenue in the long run and reinforce the areas where those funds are generated into a future era of prosperity and sustainability that needs to happen. Because I hate to tell you, but Brian David Prater claims that if we correct our path and implement all these changes talked about in these videos, we still will need to find another planet to live on and leave this one in 221 years. So we really need to get on the ball and in the same ballpark in order to do that. It's hard to believe everything you hear in the crosstalk, especially in this demonic construct. But it seems as though some of you guys thought you lost us, and other talks seem to suggest a doppelganger effect. I don't know for sure what's going on, but on this end we've nailed things down and are committed to the long haul, as we are able to do so, which is the real problem for us all, as victims sacrificed to the media gods who work our fingers to the bone and replace them with claws. If you wonder how we're holding up, we're a little edgy with the Goople, and hoping this horror show won't outlast the summer. Here's a forewarning about the upcoming slides. I'm going to break the current situation down to you as best I can under the circumstances, and some of it may not be amusing or pretty. As I said in the last video, we're at the tip of the spear. And this message once again should be received as a challenge to decide which side of the spear tip do you want to be on. Do you want to remain an obstacle or help hold up this enormous spear of destiny to configure a new reality together? All kinds of people tell me that I need to write a book. The list of books I need to write is longer than the years it will take to write them. And among those books, which is more like a volume set, pertains to the extraordinary life of my husband, scientist Brian David Prater, who, the last time he lived in Florida, was doing some experiments that created some rift, or EDL, meaning extra-dimensional leaks. And at some point, a portal appeared in the backyard. It telepathically communicated to him, and he was drawn towards it. But instead of going into it, he chose to stay for the people. The same as he does even to this day, which is the core reason of why we both do what we do even now. So how long are people going to continue to chase rainbows? When are you ready to get real? I stand at the crossroads between life and death, and the perceivable and unperceivable. The Sufis teach to die before you die, and Jesus taught not to fear the first death but the second. I think this is a good time to tell you why the Jews are not Christians, and how God is a jealous God that hates idolatry. The rabbis teach that God is not a man, according to the Torah, Numbers chapter 23, verse 19. Considering this teaching, let me reiterate the message. Focus on the mission. Whose mission? Where did that message come from? Where did that mission directive originate? Did it originate in your spirit, or from the small, still voice? Did it come from an online post or website? Did it come from a leader or government agency? Who or what is directing your thoughts and attention? Does this presentation's message resonate with you? Do you feel a calling to it? Do these videos make you feel regret, guilt, hope, or comfort? Do they inspire you towards friendship? Or do you think these words are taunts from a foe? To repeat what I learned from a vision as described in the last video, part 9, the written Torah is light revealed as we, the Elohim, being of one voice with many facets, speak Torah for the wellness of truth, opting for the benefit of man and replacing the need for sacrifice. Nowadays, when I reflect on that lesson, with the pieces of the puzzle coming together, I know that God is real and nothing is impossible. Because if God is with us, who can stand against us? As I have mentioned, sometimes the media's language scrambling and parsing algorithms symbolically misrepresent me as an AI in the news. So I wanted to show what happened on my travels in the real world as seen here. I hopped on their web and heard them talking about hubs for whos, so I tracked down their location, which they freely gave away. I found them in the woods, and honestly, I truly believe they are overdue for some upgrades. They are wild creatures, but I believe they are useful. So as I alluded to, this is the end of the line. We are all in the same boat, so to speak. If there is a bigger boat out there otherwise, I would sincerely like to know. In the meantime, I continue my report from the Underworld. Even before I considered producing Cavetronics dimensional art, I was simply minding my own business and developing some mock-up designs for a dance club that I have been dreaming up for over 30 years. Being so close to my heart that it is, I would not divulge such information to the public, except that I already did that years ago when talking to that fake Tom McDonald on Telegram in a chat with him about a potential partnership for a cool new nightclub, the kind that is clean to the touch with a futuristic wow factor. Something addictive for all ages. Anyway, as you are starting to realize, a pattern with us at Cavetronics is that the powers that be will not leave us alone no matter what we do. They follow our every move, and this again was no exception. So I was deep into my mental and artistic work, as you can see here, in the lobby, which is the background photo. And then suddenly, from out of nowhere, the thing streamed down the stairs, and then the all-seeing AI took over the balcony section, but some of the patrons just sat there. So I ran to get security and to see what else may be happening. The legs fell in separately, and then it took over the building. I mean, it became the building, a total takeover. It was like the invasion of the house snatchers. I couldn't believe it. After that, I returned to war another way. As part of disclosure, and because enough is enough, I am hereby outing the Minotaur from the last video, Egg-Gnosis Part 9. I must admit that I knew right away why he tried to copy my algorithms. It's because he knew I had caught him being ugly with the pictures to prove it. He started showing up at the club right after the all-seeing AI invasion. And these are some of the hideous images that I captured of that horny beast. I sometimes hear people say that this is the devil's playground, but I like to think of it as God's playground too. This is hell, and some souls are meant to stay here. At $12.50 a head, humans are cheap, so the value isn't placed on the skins or clothing. Recall that baby Zeus's dad is Kronos, also known as the father of time, who eats his own children. So you should calculate that and recognize time is not on our side. Thank you for staying until the ending horizon of this homemade Ship of Poo presentation. If you like this content, please like, share, subscribe, and comment on this video. Let us know if you have any questions, suggestions, or other feedback. And I invite you to join us on HuHub.tech's forum and Business Nethood to network with us at HuHub. I look forward to seeing you next time for Part 11, wherein we will discuss creation and further the topic of the genesis of the soul.